when stars are in light, though we would know.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? Hey Jason,
Hey Matt.
Thanks for joining. Quick introductions everyone. Thank you for joining the Improving Sales Performance livecast. We're excited that you're here. We're excited to kick off a new season of talking to sales, talking to leadership. Of course, this is targeted for sales leadership, but today we are going to be really diving in to Jason's new book, Beyond the Superhero, and I'll give a proper introduction to Jason here in a second. If you are joining us live on either YouTube or LinkedIn, and you could jot something in the comment, maybe tell us where you're watching from, and that's always interesting. There is a little bit of a delay. We found it's about a 20-second delay, so if you want to post questions during the live cast, that's perfectly fine. Or if you have comments that you want to post, we love reading your comments. If it's something that seems like it fits into the conversation, I'm going to try my best to read those comments and questions, and I'll get those on just as soon as I can. The Improving Sales Performance livecast this new season is all going to be talking to leaders, CEOs, executives, authors, all about their business and how they improve revenue performance and improve performance at their companies. We're really interested in learning their story, learning what makes their organization their organization. We all have organizations, businesses, companies. They're all kind of like fingerprints, right? They're all a little bit different. At our summer staff meeting last week, we were talking about, I think John, one of the managing partners, mentioned that the word company means like to gather together. It's your company. In the old days, I guess we say we're having company over tonight, right? And that meant you were gathering with a group of people. And so companies are interesting. And that's what we want to do here today. We want to unpack what Jason does and his leadership role at Questco. Shay is producing as always, and anytime that there's a relevant link, we'll put that up on the screen. You can see Jason's name is up there, and he is the CEO of Questco. And if you want to check out the Questco website, you can do that at Questco.net. So we encourage you to go and do that. Let me do a proper intro for Jason. I wrote it out, so I'm going to read it. Full disclosure, Jason, I told you I was going to do this. Full disclosure, Jason and I have known each other for a really long time, like a really long time. High school, college, we go back a long way. And Jason and Questco is a client of the Center for Sales Strategy and of Lead G2, our inbound marketing agency. So I wanted just to put that out there so that everyone knows. And by the way, speaking of Lead G2, they will be kicking off their Selling Smarter, Selling Faster live cast tomorrow with Danny and Shay. And if you want to check that out, you can do that with that link. All right, everyone. Jason Randall. Jason is a business leader with a gift for inspiring successful teams. He has a resume that he says, I don't know if I would say this, but he says nobody would ever build by design. I think you're being a little rough on yourself. I think it's a good you got lots of great experiences. I like the way you write about them in the intro to your book too. Jason studied accounting at the University of Missouri in Columbia. He became a CPA for an international firm and then left to start a small franchise business with a lifelong friend. After taking some time to earn his MBA at the Kellogg School of Management, Jason plunged into corporate world with Goldman Sachs and Boston Consulting Group before he eventually became the director of brand marketing for Meritz. In 2005, Jason became CEO of an e-commerce company where he was introduced to the concept of outsource human resourcing, outsource HR. He was a client of the company called Insperity. He later joined Insperity, a company with $4 billion in revenue, serving as their VP and managing director. That leads him to where he is today. In 2018, Jason was named the CEO of Questco, a Houston area HR outsourcing company known for its can-do spirit and its award-winning customer service. It is my pleasure and honor, and I was so excited. I've been excited we had this planned for, I think, like 3 months ago. Jason, I'm excited that you're here. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks. We have known each other a long time, and it speaks, I guess, first of all, to the power of an extended network and staying in touch and all these things that we always talk about as being great for sales. It's actually, it's actualized in this instance. And I guess the other thing I'd say about that is, one of the ways we know each other is that long ago, Matt was actually my pledge master in the fraternity, which does, in fact, I guess, show that hazing is a lifetime commitment. So thank you, sir. May I have another?
That's right. What happens in the fraternity stays in the fraternity. I think that
different podcast. Yes,
that's exactly right. That's a different podcast, members only. All right, let's jump into it. First of all, tell us a little bit about Questco. What is it that you all do? What are the problems that you solve? Why do businesses work with Questco?
So Questco serves the small and mid-sized business community. And when you think about this large segment, adds so much value, economic value to our society, adds great value to our community. And these are businesses that in many ways are underserved and outmatched by large company competition in many ways. So many of the challenges they face involve their people, whether it involves how do I attract the right talent to enable me to grow as I'd like to? How do I retain the critical team that I have? And how do I make sure that my costs are in line and doing all these things that can be really quite expensive, quite intimidating, and perhaps beyond my skill set as an entrepreneur or as a leader? So the reason Questco exists as an outsourced HR organization is to enable a small business or a mid-sized business with a stroke of a pen to outsource and bring in expertise and capability across all these essential areas to grow a business with regard to its people. Everything from running payroll to handling benefits, to providing HR expertise, to workers' compensation and safety services, and then finally HR technology. Each one of these areas are robust and significant and can be a lot for a business to put together. We do all that for them through one unified platform and approach, and we enable them oftentimes to expand and enhance their capabilities and save money on top of it. That's just the reason why we're so excited to talk to these business owners and operators, and why Questco has done a good job on behalf of its clients for over 31 years.
Yeah, it's really an important function because a lot of times as businesses get started, right, they get started because an entrepreneur or business owner had an idea for a product or a service, and that product and service took off. There was early success, and that success led them to hiring people. And the focus, for the most part, in the beginning is on the product and the surface or the service that you're being offered. And then before you know it, you look down and you have 10 people, 12 people working for you, and you never really thought about all those other things of running the business versus serving clients, delivering goods and products and services. I think the outsourced HR world is not only super interesting, but really important to companies that are in growth mode, especially.
I would say any company that has 5 to 100 employees, especially if they're crossing state lines, which of course is almost ubiquitous now in an age of COVID and virtual employment situations, they owe it to themselves to take a look at the model from someone. Make sure that let's see if it's right for you, because oftentimes it's just a flat out better mousetrap and liberates you as a business owner or business operator from a whole bunch of things that would then enable you to free your time and mind share for things that will actually drive sustained economic value to your organization.
Yeah, that's a really good point about crossing state lines. That go back probably 20 years ago, maybe that wasn't a very big deal. Today, almost every business is crossing state lines, and with work from home or work from anywhere, you might have employees in lots of different places. It's a big deal. So on today's live cast, I want to do two things. I want to talk about your book, and then I want to explore how you all improve sales performance. I want to know what drives sales and revenue, and how do you go about doing that. But first, let's talk about the book. And so let me show everyone. Beyond the Superhero. So I came up with some questions, and I just want to kind of run through them with you. So let's start from the beginning. What compelled you to write a book? What was that? And what's the book about?
So when the Forbes, sure. So the Forbes team reached out to discuss a concept that I found really resonant. As a new CEO myself a few years ago, I felt like I was reasonably prepared with a lot of the stuff you kind of learn in school, whether it's an operating model or a play to run, or nearer to this conversation, the right sales model to enable growth. These are things that I felt well prepared for. What I felt less prepared about were a lot of the human and emotional elements of assuming this role of greatly broadened responsibility. And our company is private equity owned, so it's also a deeper responsibility in terms of the kind of skill set I would need. And while the skills can be taught rather easily and are kind of just out there in a number of places, what I felt lacking was sort of, how do you prepare emotionally? How do you prepare a mindset for leadership? And most importantly, how do you avoid some of the pitfalls that can lead to problems? So that was really the motivating impetus to move forward and try to contain my own thoughts with the book.
Yeah, so I loved in the first chapter, it's called In the Eye of the Storm. You talk a lot about culture. That's really important to us at the Center for Sales Strategy. We actually have a division of the company that focuses on culture. But talk to me about the culture you are building and creating, and how all that plays together.
Sure. Well, fundamentally, Questco, as an outsourced HR provider, is a caretaking organization. And we literally go through this explicitly in our group gatherings. That is our archetype of the caregiver. And what that means is that we are here to make sure our clients aren't alone in these challenges that they face. And we are there to take care of people, as the name, as this archetype, of course, suggests. How could we possibly be that outside our walls if we aren't that authentically to each other? And so from there comes an insight that drives cultural issues at the forefront of the agenda. So that's where it starts, Matt, is that culture was fundamentally important to deliver on our economic value, as opposed to a nice to have because it's fun or things like that. Far from a soft skill, in other words.
Yeah, you got to make culture first, right? I mean, you have not the operation, you can have the best strategic plan ever.
Sure.
But if nobody likes each other and no one's engaged and you don't have that strong culture, it's destined to be a struggle for sure.
You bet.
So let me ask you about, I mean, the name of the book is Beyond the Superhero. I want to dive into the chapter that is, what is the CEO superhero trap? You explain it so nicely, and obviously you're not going to read us the book, but what is this? Explain to everyone, what is that superhero trap that CEOs get themselves into?
Well, this one was real personal to me. And I guess the metaphor that's real helpful here is right now, there's a lot of attention being given to, for example, photoshopped physical images. And does it set an unrealistic, say, beauty standard out there? I see a direct analogy and have experienced it myself when it comes to management. Is there a similar sort of dysmorphia that takes place? Because when you read in the popular press about very large enterprises, it all comes down to a single personality, a single person, so much so that in certain cases, we say a company name and a person's face comes to mind as well. The organization might have 40,000 people, but one person, well, that's really what the success is all about. And I'm not here to denigrate or minimize the contribution that a strong, effective leader has. Of course, that's a very meaningful, important position. That's why I believe in what I do each day. But I think it's important that we're both kind to ourselves and realistic, that we can't be it all, do it all, and know it all. And if you fall into this trap of thinking that you must be that, you're going to have a lot of problems being happy day to day and also being effective and being able to scale, because you're going to be limited by your own calendar, your own skills, and ultimately your own shortcomings as it comes to maximizing the success of your operation.
Yeah, no, as I was reading that chapter, I heard your voice, right? I mean, that, and I think that anybody who's in a CEO role or a business owner role or a sales leader role where you're the chief sales officer basically of your operation is really going to relate to what you put in that chapter. Now, I do want one more chapter in the book that I'd like you to unpack for us or explain a little bit. It might have been my favorite chapter. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my personality. Fly it while you build it. What did you mean? Kind of give everyone a sense of what that is.
Well, I feel like that saying is almost like on the verge of cliche or tried at this point, but it comes from a real honest place. It actually comes from the world of improv comedy. A guy named Del Close that really founded or was a leader in this sort of art form. And improv is something that I participated in graduate school when I was in Chicago, and really enjoy a lot of those principles as they affect business. So what is the chapter about fundamentally? It's an acknowledgement that the best laid plans will not survive the heat of the workday. As opposed to being upset, disappointed, stressed by that, let's embrace it. Let's use principles of improv and flexibility and the mindset to iterate on the fly. And our organizations and our people will be thankful for it. And certainly those of us in sales, my gosh, what sales call runs according to plan? If you're a sales leader, what budget is attained according to plan, right? It just never happens. So the chapter is my way through storytelling and some things that have happened to me in my career. How has this been really a refreshing and fresh concept to help us cope and actually thrive as leaders?
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of that diagram that you see often in presentations where they're talking about the growth of a company, especially when an entrepreneur is giving the speech, and they'll show that diagram, and it says, here's what you want to believe the company did, and it's just like a straight arrow up and to the right. In reality, this is what was happening, and it's just like this and this and this until it finally gets there, because that's the reality. Is you start with a plan, but it's just a start. You have to be able to change and adapt to the situations that are around you.
Right. And if you embrace that as
go ahead.
If you embrace that as a fact and as a business condition, you will learn to love it and accept it, and thus build it while you fly it.
So I want to jump now into talking a little bit about sales. So what is the sales process at Questco? In other words, do you have a sales department? Do people call you? Do you call them? Just give us the high concept of how sales works at a company like yours.
Sure. Well, outsourced HR in our neighborhood within that, which is called a PEO or professional employer organization, it's a relatively straightforward thing to explain, right? Take these functions, partner with us on them, life gets easier. It's actually very complicated to execute and to sell. So it's a complex sale. And as such, our role is to educate, inform, and really guide to enable our prospects to make a high quality decision, the essence of a complex sale. So we're well organized against that goal. We're very clear as to who our our market is. And then we're set up with both a direct sales force where we employ the individuals that actually will advocate exclusively for Questco. We also have a very robust channel organization, which are independent third-party organizations that represent a variety of folks in our space. And we go to market in both ways, and they're both essential to our success. In addition to the sales people, who are, of course, involved end-to-end from generating opportunities to the close of business, because of the complexity in certain areas, namely medical benefits and HR technology, we will also supplement their efforts with sales engineers that can then provide unbiased expertise on these really critical areas and go very deep for our prospects and new clients that require that as a part of their decision making. Again, toward this goal of helping a high quality decision.
So if I'm a salesperson working for Questco and I'm talking to a prospect and it gets to a point where I've determined that they are indeed a good prospect, they have the right setup, they have enough people, they're in multiple steps, whatever the case is, but they have some really, really specific questions. That's when I bring in a sales engineer. Is that the use of that sales engineer?
That's correct. And it can be just to add some confidence when the questions are still relatively straightforward, just an extra boost. But a lot of times when you're talking about these things, these are massive investments relative to their P&L and so on. So we want to make sure they have all the information explained at their time frame and to their level of depth. This is differentiated in Questco, by the way, but we think it's important for insurance to have a licensed person able to guide you through if your situation is complex or if you're considering a number of things there. Likewise with technology, easy to talk in generalities, but you as a prospect may need something a certain way or an integration. We can talk through whether that's possible or in your best interest or not.
So a lot of the sales leaders that we talk to, other folks that have been on this live cast, talk about the different steps of the sales process, whether that is the target, getting an appointment with someone, getting that first connection, just to have that discussion, determining if there's a need, presenting proposals, the research phase that prospects go through before they make a final decision, the closing of the deal, the fulfillment of the deal, the renewing of the deal. A lot of times what they'll say to us on this live cast is that getting the appointment, that front end of the sales process, is really difficult. Is that something that your team sees as difficult? What do you do for that?
I can't imagine anyone that's in a sales environment saying, well, it's easier now than it ever has been to get in front of people.
Right. It seems like it's harder now than ever before.
Right. And the more technology is in front of us, the more it quickly becomes commoditized from a decision maker's attention sort of point of view. So what I would say is, of course, this is a timeless struggle that is only getting more intense. So obviously the first thing is to manage to activity. That has to stay a primary metric for sales success. We believe profoundly in also arming our sales force with rich content to make that easier, especially as our brand is not exactly ubiquitous. Some of our competitors are much more so. So how do we do that? Well, let's have wonderful content. Let's make sure that it's available and well understood by the sales force to really soften that beachhead and enable the right kind of receptivity to the conversation. I would say some other aspect of this is, I'm sure if I asked you, Matt, or any of the participants on this call, what's the best kind of sales lead? Where would it come from?
Referral.
So we believe it's important, just as you have an activity plan for prospecting to strangers, you should also have a referral generation mindset and make it part of your day, and also seed your sales conversations with this very early in the process as a sales producer. There's no reason, obviously a first meeting or something like that where you literally don't know each other, obviously premature. But as the process advances, if you say, hey, I'm going to be coming back to you because I want this to go so well that you will be overjoyed to refer your contacts and network into me. Set that expectation up front and then follow through, because these things happen much more predictably if they're a part of the process.
Yeah, I think everyone in sales would agree that 100% of referrals at least get you an appointment, right? I mean, you get a good referral, you're going to get a meeting. Whether that turns into anything or not, who knows? But you're going to get a meeting. That's pretty good. We have some data that says 91% of clients are happy to give a referral. Only 11% of salespeople ask for referrals.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy,
what
right?
An opportunity. What an opportunity.
Just right there for you. I would imagine your sales cycle is long.
It's dependent largely on our prospects. We require, there's an element of risk to our transaction because we're offering medical benefits and so on. So a lot of it, because of the data that's required, is up to them. We can move really quickly on our side. I actually believe that's important strategically, that we need to flex into them. But it typically would take about a 3 to 6 month sales cycle, just sort of depending on the calendar and so on.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I would imagine that there's a lot of research or a lot of questions. And so having that robust, having your salespeople have that robust sales references and resources that they can use, that's the important part there. So one of the things that's going on that we're witnessing with our clients is work from home, work from anywhere type of thing. And then there's also this whole the great resignation, as I think Wall Street Journal has called it, or someone called it. And people are starting to look, am I in the right place? So it's causing a lot of people to really put a lot of time and effort into hiring and talent bank and all of those things. When it comes to finding salespeople, where do you guys find your salespeople?
I believe the ability to be more remote and not tied as much to geography, while the old-fashioned Ben Franklin close, pros and cons, there is a lot on both
Sure.
columns. What I can say is, on balance, it's been a liberating factor for us. So we've relaxed the geography. We have a very specific hiring profile in mind. I guess a couple of them. We believe profoundly in an objective talent instrument at the front end. Not to use it as the gospel for everything, but it's a great conversation focuser so that we know where the strengths and weaknesses and the opportunities to explore are. So we have the right profile. We've gone through an appropriate due diligence, and then we're looking for a couple of different backgrounds. In our specific case, there's a profile for coming within the industry and a contrasting profile if you're not as familiar with the industry. We are receptive to both, and a lot depends on that story. But, again, what you're hearing from me is, to the extent that you can be systematic and intentional and proactive, the sales organization benefits.
Yeah, I saw something on LinkedIn just last night. There's an iceberg, and everyone knows the iceberg, the story of the iceberg, right? Only a small portion of the iceberg is above the water. The biggest portion is below. And this person was making the point that when it comes to hiring, when it comes to selecting people, what you see above the water, the tip of the iceberg, is knowledge, skills, experience, education. Those are easy to see. What's below the water is the talent and the cultural fit, right? The EQ. Those are all the things underneath that are there and that are super important. All of it's important. You just got to make sure you're looking at all of it when you do that. All right, so last question. If someone wanted to learn more about Questco and all the great services that you all provide, where do they go? What do you want them to go and look at? Go to Questco.net, and is there something in particular? Is there anything that you want to give a shout out to?
So within our own website at Questco.net, there's a wealth of information about our industry, about our company's take on it, and what makes us special and really worthy of a conversation. So within the Questco website, there's an education and a blog section that can really, if you're new to this concept, new to the process, that's wonderful. If in contrast, you're interested in talking more about the book material, senior management perspective, independent of the HR conversation, I'd love to make some new friends at meetjasonrandall.com.
Yeah, absolutely. I shared with everyone, this is the book. I recommend that you go and get it. You order it today. Beyond the Superhero, you can order it at Amazon.com. But if you just go to meetjasonrandall.com, you can get all the information that you need. And if you want to connect with Jason and have a conversation about Questco or about the book, I know that he's right there and he loves talking to people. That'd be a great thing to do. All right, on our next episode, On our next episode, kicking off with our sales leadership series, we're going to have a gentleman by the name of Tom Morris, and you're going to be excited to hear what Tom has to say. He's got some great information out. I saw a video that he was in on YouTube. It was fascinating about. Well, I won't go into it now. I'll go into it later. Thanks everyone for coming. If you like the show, please like, subscribe, share. We're trying to boost our YouTube viewers. That's always good for us. Jason, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Matt.
See ya.